Hi everyone, welcome to Values. Today we're looking at Meta and we're looking at the VR side of things in particular because this is what the company believes is going to turn things around, particularly a declining share price right now, which is at $93, having fallen 6%. So the situation of Meta right now is they believe VR is going to turn the company around. Investors kind of don't actually believe it. They believe it's just a big cash burn that isn't going anywhere right now, and they also look at it in the sense of, hey, your social platform is the top platform around. How are you going to actually do anything to increase what you have right now? And it doesn't seem like they're actually doing anything at all to change anything around. So the problem is, you have an existing business that's in decline, particularly with the economy heading towards a recession. Ad spend's going to decrease and revenue is going to probably continue to decrease in the coming quarters. If not by decrease, they probably will not see much of an increase, and potentially with inflation increasing the cost so much, their profits continue to dwindle. So that's a threat of the current social platform. And the situation of the VR side is they're putting tens of billions of dollars into it, and it doesn't look like it's yielding as much of a success as the investors want to see. The company continues to put a focus on this because they believe they're setting the foundations for the future, and hence why we want to explore a bit more into the VR side of things. So in terms of VR, if we look at the market share of AR and VR, in 2020 it was at 29%, by the next quarter it was up to 74%, and they kind of maintained this throughout 2021 and then to the start of 2022, and at the present last quarter it was at 66%, which is still a good market share. So the biggest question is this making a difference in terms of revenue? So we don't really have a lot of numbers to go by, but they do have. Here is one number that we've got. The Quest store generated $1.5 billion, which is pretty impressive because they managed to get this into the billions, right? And that's not counting the sales of the headsets, right? So this is just people spending money on the store. So how impressive is this store? So as they say, 1/3 of the company's 400 Quest titles have grossed more than $1 million in sales. 33 have surpassed $10 million in gross revenue. And basically they also had a title, The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, surpassed $50 million in revenue on Quest. So basically we're seeing this is the top one that it managed to reach $50 million. Which is pretty brilliant because we're seeing a device that's actually not, that widely used. Like you go into a lot of households and you probably won't see one of these devices. So for the amount of people using it, that's actually quite impressive. And then they have Resident Evil making $2 million in the first 24 hours on the store. So we're actually seeing quite a lot of good work come into the store. It's going to take time to develop, which is what they kind of believe. They are seeing progress, and they're seeing basically if they keep sinking money into this, eventually the store revenue is going to look pretty good. But the question is, it could take many years. So that's kind of why investors are not particularly excited. So if we jump into the numbers, right? So we have the numbers on Reality Labs, which is the VR side of the business, and in 2019 their revenue was half a billion dollars, whereas they lost $4.5 billion, and the overall cost was $5 billion, right? So hence why you got $5 billion and then minus the 4.5, and then you have that revenue basically. Or you can reverse it. You look at the costs minus the revenue and you've got the operating loss. So in 2020, the costs and expenses increased to $7.7 billion, and the operating loss was $6.6 billion. Though if we look at the revenue side, it increased to $1.1 billion. So that was their first year where they got $1 billion in the VR side of things. And last year they got $2.3 billion, which is pretty impressive. though the losses were quite colossal. The cost and expenses was $12.5 billion, operating loss was $10 billion. So their revenue is, in a sense, is not growing quick enough to really match up with their costs and expenses, which is pretty normal, right? Because they're spending so much on a new platform, and this is kind of what the reason why we kind of believe that, hey, if VR was to succeed, Facebook would, or Meta would have a dominant presence in this, because they've already got the Quest store up. They've got really advanced hardware, as we witness with the Quest 2 Pro, which is quite a sleek device and looking very, very advanced. So this year, so far, this is up to September, we have the costs and expenses at $10.8 billion. So this is likely to eclipse last year when it was 12.5. Operating loss is at 9.4, which we believe it's going to eclipse last year. And revenue was $1.4 billion, which is questionable whether it's going to surpass $2.3 billion or not. They do have a headset that just released probably about a week ago, the Quest 2 Pro, and potentially the sales for that is going to give them a good boost to get to at least $2 billion in revenue. So in terms of where they're at right now, we're looking at a situation where they're spending a ton of money, and the revenue side is actually it's moving quick if we look at the numbers itself, but in the scheme of things, it's actually still quite low. So we don't actually expect a lot of changes that's going to make a big difference to Meta in the short term. Probably at least not this year, not next year, potentially in 2-3 years time, or even 5 years time. But right now it's not compelling enough to really make a difference where we look at it and we go, I see confidence. No, right now I do not see confidence in this. I see a massive cash burning furnace, as Elon Musk would say. So basically we're looking at Meta and we're going, can they turn their social business around? So we know that VR is still basically in development. It's still going to be many years away before it really makes a difference, at least in the current situation where they're burning well over $10 billion a year. And basically we don't really see any changes in the economy, like we see it just heading further down. So I think the current business will be a bit more under pressure. The VR side of things is not going to be much of a difference in the current term. So we're looking at a share price at $93, and I think it's good value right now for the long term. But I think the share price has room to continue to fall as the numbers continue to come out, and they may not look that positive, particularly with companies reducing their ad spend, which is kind of pretty normal, particularly in this kind of phase where we're looking at quite a big downturn. So that's not going to be favorable for Meta, and I think this is a stock that's really, really good value right now. But it's the same situation. They're kind of really, really in a downtrend, which probably potentially means you could actually buy the stock at a lot cheaper. Though at $93, I think in 2-3 years time, or even next year, you're going to be smiling again, because they are such a dominant company that just has so many users with their platform that it's hard to see them kind of declining to anything too bad, because the minute the economy picks up, the minute ad spend kind of increases, they're going to be all good again, and we're going to see their numbers rise again. I kind of see the stock as it's an opportunity right now. It's not a stock in decline per se. It's not a company that is being irrelevant. Nothing's coming to really take its users away. not particularly, nothing that really stands out anyway. At the end of the day, a lot of people still love using Facebook, particularly with the family side of things. They love using Instagram to check out photos, and WhatsApp is quite a useful kind of app, particularly with a lot of people when it comes to just pure communications. And I think, yeah, like they're not really looking at any acquisitions, at least nothing that they've hinted at. So I think we're going to see a bit more pressure onto that. But until then, I think it's, you're really only buying into the stock, particularly if you believe that things are going to turn around in the longer term. I don't think they're going to turn around this year, but they potentially can turn around next year. Let me know what your thoughts are or any comments. Until then, good luck investing, everyone.